I am Liam Peterson, 36 years old, a veterinarian living in the vast land of Wyoming, where the Rocky Mountains seem to embrace everything, from the red dirt roads to the expansive grasslands. My life is simple, almost mundane in a way that I love, calm and reserved. I'm not the type to talk much, nor do I like crowds. Every day I spend most of my time at my small clinic treating injured hunting dogs. Stray cats meowing for food or old horses struggling against age. That work brings me peace, as if I'm mending the broken pieces of the world through each stitch or dose of medicine. And the mornings? Those are my most private moments. I often sit on the wooden porch holding a steaming cup of coffee, watching the sun rise from the horizon, dyeing the tall pines red. Nothing complicated, just black coffee, a light breeze, and the echoing bird song. That's how I start my day, far from the troubles of modern life. But that morning, everything began to change. I remember it clearly. The air was chilly, autumn leaves falling scattered on the ground, and my breath formed small white clouds in the air. I sat there, sipping my coffee, trying to shake off the fatigue from last night's emergency surgery. A hunting dog hit by a car. Luckily, it survived. The aroma of coffee mingled with the pine scent relaxed me, my mind wandering to Grace, my wife. We'd only been married a few months and she was the light in my life. Grace, with her radiant smile and shimmering golden hair, worked as a waitress at a small coffee shop in the town of Jackson. She often woke early, leaving home at dawn to start her shift from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. I was proud of her, of how she always stayed cheerful despite the hard work. We had cozy evenings by the fireplace, sharing stories about our days. That life, though humble, felt perfect to me. Then suddenly a familiar greeting rang out from the low wooden fence, pulling me from my thoughts. "Good morning, Liam. Beautiful day, isn't it?" I looked up, setting my coffee cup on the old wooden table. It was Mrs. Martha Ellison, my neighbor. She was walking her old shaggy dog as she did every morning. Mrs. Martha was a widow in her 60s, living alone in a small house just a few steps from mine. She was friendly, always smiling and asking about the weather or the harvest. Her husband had died a few years ago in a hunting accident, and since then, she spent her time tending her small garden with rose bushes and walking her dog. We weren't close friends, but those brief conversations made the neighborhood less lonely. I waved back, my voice warm. "Good morning, Mrs. Martha." "Yes, it really is. How's old Max today? Still doing well?" She stopped by the fence, petting the panting dog's head. We chatted a bit about the weather. Winter was approaching. Snow might come earlier than usual. And about the corn harvest she often mentioned. She smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes deepening in the weak sunlight. But then her smile faded. She glanced around, as if afraid someone was eavesdropping, though there was only the wind and falling leaves around us. Her voice lowered, almost a whisper. "Liam, I don't want to meddle in your personal affairs, but I've noticed something strange." My heart tightened slightly. Mrs. Martha wasn't the gossipy type, so when she said that, I knew it was serious. I leaned forward, my voice gentle. "What's wrong, ma'am? Is something the matter?" She took a deep breath, her eyes on the ground as if weighing her words. "Lately, I've seen Grace's car parked at home early, around 1 p.m. Not just once or twice, but repeatedly. I often sit on my porch knitting, so I notice." I frowned, trying to understand. Grace worked until 3 p.m., rarely coming home early unless the shop was slow or she was sick. But Mrs. Martha continued, her voice growing quieter. "And there's a strange red pickup truck, I don't know whose, that shows up in front of your house every time Grace comes home early. It parks there for a while, then leaves. I don't want to think badly, but it makes me wonder. What is Grace doing coming home so early? You know, small town, people talk." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. I sat still, the coffee now cold in my hand. Grace coming home early? And a strange red pickup? I tried to recall recent days, but nothing seemed unusual. I was often busy at the clinic until late, and every time I got home, Grace was always waiting with a hot dinner. I nodded to Mrs. Martha, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thank you for telling me. I'll ask Grace about it. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding." She nodded, her face worried. Yes, I hope so. Be careful, Liam. Then she walked on with her dog, leaving me alone with the cold wind. I sat there, staring at the empty yard, a strange feeling rising. Suspicion mixed with worry. Why was Grace coming home early? And the red pickup? Whose was it? I pictured the scene. Grace parking in front of the house, then a strange truck appearing, parking beside it. Who got out of it? What did they do in my house? The thought made my heart beat faster. I wasn't the jealous type, but our marriage was new, and Grace was everything to me. Mrs. Martha's words were like a seed of doubt planted in my heart. I stood up, walked into the house, but my feet felt heavy as if being held back. The familiar wooden house suddenly seemed strange, as if the walls were whispering secrets I didn't know. I poured the remaining coffee into the sink, watching the water wash it away, and wondered if my marriage was drifting away in the same manner. Grace and I, we had truly happy months together. The first time I met her was at the coffee shop where she worked. Grace had a smile that could melt even Wyoming snow. We dated through picnics by the lake, nights lying by the fireplace telling jokes. When I proposed, she cried with joy, and our small wedding was the happiest day of my life. I thought I had found peace, but now, the neighbor's words had shaken everything. I drove to the clinic to work, but that entire morning I couldn't focus. My clinic was on the edge of Jackson Town, a small building with the smell of disinfectant and the barking of dogs and cats. I examined a horse with arthritis, vaccinated a few puppies, but my mind kept wandering. Every time I looked at the clock, I imagined Grace somewhere else, not at the coffee shop. 1 p.m., the time Mrs. Martha said she came home. I wondered, what is she doing right now? Is that red truck parked in front? The thought made my hands tremble as I held the syringe, and I had to stop, taking deep breaths to calm down. I'm going crazy, I told myself. Grace loves me. It's probably just friends visiting. But that bad premonition, it was like a venomous snake coiled in my stomach waiting to strike. At noon, I quickly ate a sandwich at the clinic, but it wouldn't go down. I called Grace, pretending to check in. Honey, is the shop busy today? Her voice was cheerful over the phone. Yeah, super busy, babe. I'm swamped here. Love you. I hung up, feeling a bit lighter, but then thought, is she lying? I recalled the time she came home later than usual, explaining it was a party at the shop, or the strange messages she quickly deleted when I accidentally saw them. Those small details, which I had overlooked before because of trust, now became pieces of a frightening puzzle. I blamed myself. Why are you doubting your wife? Mrs. Martha might be mistaken, but deep down I knew she wasn't the type to make things up. She lived alone, observing everything as part of her daily life. Late afternoon, I drove home, the Wyoming wind blowing through the open window, carrying the scent of damp earth and forest pines. The familiar road with golden-leaved trees now seemed endlessly long. I parked in front of the gate, looking at the lit house, and my heart beat faster. Grace was home, her car parked neatly. I walked in, the smell of grilled meat wafting from the kitchen. She was there, wearing an apron, humming an old song softly. You're home. I'm making your favorite grilled chicken salad. She turned around, hugged me, and I tried to hug back, but the embrace now felt awkward. We sat at the dinner table with hot plates of food and talked about our days. I told her about the arthritic horse. She told me about difficult customers at the shop. Everything seemed normal, but in my head, Mrs. Martha's words echoed. As the meal neared its end, I couldn't hold back anymore. I set down my fork, looking at Grace across the flickering candlelight on the table. Honey, this morning I ran into Mrs. Martha. She told me something strange. Grace looked up, her smile still on her lips, but I saw her eyes blink slightly. What was it, babe? She always talks about the weather. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice light. She said lately she's often seen your car parked at home early around 1 p.m. And there's a strange red pickup truck parking in front every time you come home early. She's worried, so she told me. Those words hung in the air, and I observed Grace closely like a doctor diagnosing an illness. She paused for a moment, just a brief second, as if time stood still. A flash of panic crossed her face, her eyes widening, her lips trembling slightly. But then, quick as a flash, she regained her composure. A forced smile appeared, no longer as natural as usual. "Oh, that's all? It's just a misunderstanding, babe. An old friend from out of town was traveling through the area, so he stopped by to visit me. I came home early a few times to meet him. Mrs. Martha has too much time on her hands, always meddling in others' business." Her voice tried to be cheerful, but I heard the tension. She picked up her glass of water, taking a big gulp, avoiding direct eye contact with me. I sat silently, not saying anything right away, just observing. My heart pounded, anxious, like waiting for a bomb to explode. Grace continued, "Don't worry, it's just a friend. He told old stories, we laughed a bit. I don't want you thinking nonsense." But her tone grew sharper. "And that Mrs. Martha, why doesn't she mind her own business? Small town, everyone loves to pry." "I hate that." She waved her hand as if trying to turn the whole thing into a trivial joke. "Come on, don't think about it anymore. Focus on eating before the food gets cold." She laughed, but the laugh didn't reach her eyes. I still sat in silence, noting every small change. Her eyes avoided mine, looking down at her plate instead. Her hand trembled slightly when holding the fork, and she swallowed more frequently. That overreaction from initial panic to sharpness made me feel something was off. If it was just an old friend, why explain at length? Why not specify the friend's name or the reason for coming home early? She avoided details, keeping it all vague. That bad premonition rose again, stronger than ever. I nodded, pretending to accept. Yeah, I was probably overthinking. "You're right, Mrs. Martha worries too much." But inside, the doubt was greater than ever. Grace stood up, clearing the table, her voice cheerful again. "I'm going to shower now, you watch TV." She kissed my cheek, then went into the bedroom. I sat back at the dinner table, looking at the unfinished glass of wine. The light from the hanging lamp shone down, casting long shadows on the wooden floor. A cold feeling surged in my heart, like the Wyoming winter wind blowing through it. The intuition that the story about the strange truck was just the tip of a deeper secret. "Grace, what are you hiding? Who is that old friend? And why did you react like you'd been caught red-handed?" I picked up the glass of wine, took a sip, but the bitterness spread, unable to dispel the worry. That night I lay beside Grace, hearing her steady breathing, but sleep wouldn't come. I recalled beautiful memories. Our first fishing trip when she laughed hysterically because she hooked her shirt. Or our wedding night when we whispered about the future, about children, about this house. Now it all seemed fragile. I wondered, am I destroying everything with my doubts? Or is this a sign of a bigger storm? That anxiety kept me awake all night, staring at the dark ceiling, imagining the red truck parked outside with a stranger waiting for Grace. The morning after, I woke up earlier than usual, brewing strong black coffee, but I didn't sit on the porch anymore. I was afraid to look out at the road, afraid to see the imagined red truck. Grace woke up, smiled good morning, and got ready for work as usual. She kissed me goodbye, her voice sweet. "Tonight I'll make potato beef stew, okay?" I nodded, trying to smile back, but as she drove away, I stood at the window, watching the white sedan's silhouette disappear down the flat asphalt road. In the days that followed, the doubt gnawed at me. At night, I couldn't sleep. I often sat up, turned on the desk lamp, and browsed information on my old laptop, searching for stories about spouses doubting each other. The articles online chilled me. Affairs, deceit, breakups. I wondered if I was heading down that path. Grace lay beside me, sleeping soundly, her golden hair spread across the pillow. I looked at her, my heart full of conflict. Love mixed with suspicion, like white snow mingled with mud. I recalled our honeymoon trip to Yellowstone when we sat by the hot springs, promising to be together forever. Now that promise seemed fragile. I turned off the light, lay down, but thoughts flooded in. If Grace is cheating, what then? What will you do? That premonition kept me awake all night, exhausted and drained. After 4 such restless nights, I decided to take action. I couldn't just sit and wait anymore. The next morning, I drove into town, stopping at a small electronics store in Jackson. I bought a compact security camera, the kind that connects to a phone, records in HD, and detects motion. The salesman asked, "Where are you installing it? House or garage?" I forced a smile. "Just in front of the gate for safety." But inside, I knew it was to spy on my own wife. Back home, I installed it secretly, hiding it behind a bush near the fence, aiming the lens at the road. My heart raced as I connected the app on my phone. "What are you doing, Liam? Spying on your wife like a criminal?" Guilt crept in, but the doubt was stronger. I checked the footage, clear, covering the entire gate and driveway. For nearly a week after that, everything seemed so normal it made me confused. Grace left for work on time, came home at 3 p.m., sometimes later if the shop was busy. She texted me more regularly than before. "Honey, I'm brewing coffee for customers here. Tired today, but miss you so much." Each message made me sigh in relief, but then I'd check the camera. In the evenings, when Grace slept, I sat alone in the living room, opening the app, reviewing the day's recordings. Only her white sedan parking at the right time, Grace walking into the house with her bag. No strangers entering or leaving. No red truck. No unfamiliar shadows. Day 1, 2, 3. All normal. I laughed at myself inwardly. "You're an idiot, Liam. Grace isn't cheating. It's just a misunderstanding." The more I watched, the more I felt like a paranoid character from old stories. Guilt rooted in like tree roots in soil. I wondered, am I destroying this marriage because of a passing comment from the neighbor? Mrs. Martha is friendly, but maybe she was mistaken. A car from someone else or an old age hallucination. But then one Friday afternoon, everything changed. I came home earlier than usual after a quick checkup. Parking next to Grace's sedan, I bent down to check my own tires, and my eyes stopped on the undercarriage and wheels of hers. Covered in the distinctive red mud from the outskirts of Jackson, where the dirt roads are muddy after rain. I touched it, the mud still damp, like it had just stuck. My heart pounded. The route from home to the coffee shop is all flat asphalt, dry, no mud. Where had Grace gone to get the car like this? I stood up, looking into the house through the window. Grace was in the kitchen, humming softly, unaware. In the days that followed, the situation repeated even more clearly. Saturday, Grace's car had thicker mud mixed with pine needles. Sunday, the wheels had fresh red dirt. I checked the camera. Grace came home on time, but perhaps she went somewhere during work hours. Grace still said she was working normally, not going anywhere else. "I was just at the shop, honey." But the traces on the car told a different story. She was going to places with dirt roads, perhaps the northern outskirts of Jackson, where the pine forests are dense and the paths muddy. My intuition told me something was being hidden, not just an old friend visiting, but deeper. I started imagining Grace turning off the main road, driving into the forest, meeting someone. The red truck, or something else? That anxiety made me lose sleep again, my heart racing every time I looked at her car. One morning, the Wyoming sky was overcast and gray, with low-hanging clouds pressing down on the Rocky Mountains like a heavy weight. I woke up early, brewed strong black coffee, but only took one sip before pouring it out. Grace woke up, kissed me good morning, her voice sweet. "I have a long shift today, but tonight I'll make pasta, okay, honey?" I nodded, trying to smile. But as she drove away, I stood at the window, watching the white sedan's silhouette disappear down the flat asphalt road, my heart full of turmoil. That day, I worked at the clinic like a machine, vaccinating a few dogs, checking an old cat's ears, but my mind was adrift. Around 11 a.m., I decided to close the clinic early. I drove to Grace's coffee shop and parked a distance away, hidden behind some roadside trees. The small shop was in the middle of Jackson Town with an old wooden sign and the aroma of toasted bread wafting out. Through the car window, I saw Grace inside, wearing her green apron, smiling at customers, pouring coffee swiftly. She looked normal like any other day. But I knew today was Wednesday, a day when mud often stuck to her car. I sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, sweat beading on my forehead despite the cold. Each minute dragged on like hours. I wondered, "What are you doing, Liam? Stalking your wife like in a detective movie?" Guilt crept in, but the doubt was stronger. I recalled Mrs. Martha's words, "The strange red truck parked in front of your house, and the mud. It couldn't be a coincidence." Around nearly 1 p.m., I saw Grace step out from the shop's back door, removing her apron, holding her bag. She looked around as if checking if anyone was following, then got into her white sedan. My heart raced wildly. I started the engine, keeping a safe distance, and followed. The main road home was flat asphalt, but Grace didn't turn that way. Instead, she turned right, heading toward the northern outskirts of Jackson, where only a few scattered old wooden houses stood amid tall pines with red dirt roads muddy after rain. I knew that area. Desolate, few passers-by, ideal for secret meetings. Wind blew through the slightly open car window, carrying the scent of damp earth and forest pines. I maintained just enough distance, hiding around curves, my heart pounding. "Grace, where are you going?" I whispered, as if she could hear. The deeper we went, the worse the road became. My car jolted over potholes, mud splashing everywhere. Grace drove slowly, familiarly, as if she'd taken this route many times. I imagined, perhaps she was meeting someone here, a man with a red pickup truck. The thought made my blood boil, but I tried to stay calm, my hands gripping the wheel until they turned white. Finally, after about 20 minutes, Grace's car stopped in front of a small wooden house isolated from others, its roof faded with time, surrounded by green moss and weeds. Outside the house was parked a red pickup truck, old and worn, exactly as Mrs. Martha described. Faded license plate, tires caked in mud. My heart seemed to stop. There it was, the mysterious red truck. It wasn't parked in front of my house, but here, deep in the woods. Grace got out of her car carrying her bag, her demeanor familiar and calm as if she'd been here many times. She fixed her hair, glanced around once, then stepped onto the rotting wooden porch and knocked lightly. The door opened and she stepped inside, disappearing behind the closed door. I parked far away, hidden behind bushes, and turned off the engine. The atmosphere was suffocatingly silent, only the wind howling through the pine leaves and my heart thumping in my ears. Time passed slowly, each second stretching endlessly. I sat in the car, cold sweat running down my back, my hands trembling as I held my phone but didn't dare call. What is Grace doing in there? With whom? The questions piled up. I imagined the worst, her in a stranger's arms, laughing, forgetting about me. The doubt cut into my heart like a knife. Nearly an hour later, exactly 55 minutes, I counted each one on the car clock. The wooden house door opened. Grace stepped out, fixing her disheveled hair, checking something on her phone, then smiling to herself. That look, satisfied, serene, chilled me to the bone. She got in her car and drove away, unaware I was watching. I waited a few more minutes, making sure she was far gone, then got out. My feet felt heavy, like walking through mud. I approached the house, cold wind blowing through, carrying the scent of rotting wood and faint wood smoke. The door was slightly ajar, unlocked, and through the dusty, opaque glass window I glimpsed a figure inside, a tall man moving slowly. I tilted my head slightly, holding my breath to look in, my heart pounding as if it would burst, and then my whole body froze like ice. The man in the room was none other than Harvey Peterson, my biological father, the one I had cut off contact with years ago. He stood there wearing an old shirt, his silver hair disheveled, pouring water into a cup. That face, deep wrinkles, cold eyes, I couldn't mistake it. Harvey, the domineering father who had made my childhood hell. I stepped back, gripping the rotting wooden railing, trying to stay calm. The scene before me stunned me like being struck by lightning. A barrage of questions flooded my mind. Why was Grace seeking him out? Why hide it from me? What were they meeting for? A heavy premonition arose. Everything wasn't as simple as betrayal. Harvey wasn't a stranger. He was my blood, and this truth was worse than an affair. I turned around, walking quickly back to my car, my legs trembling as if treading on sinking ground. I started the engine and drove away from that wooden house. But I didn't head home right away. Instead, I wandered aimlessly through the red dirt roads on the outskirts of Jackson, where dust billowed thickly behind the tires and the tall pines stood motionless like ghostly sentinels. The Wyoming wind blew through the open window, carrying the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves, but it couldn't dispel the cold spreading in my chest. Old memories surged back powerfully like a flood from the past, overwhelming the present. I didn't want to remember, but they came rushing in, clear and painful like the lashes from long ago. My father, Harvey Peterson, had once been a patrol officer in this small town of Jackson. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a mustache always neatly trimmed, and cold blue eyes like a frozen winter lake. Everyone in town respected him, a law enforcer, always strict with criminals. But at home, he was a monster. Hot-tempered and domineering, he treated the family like a small police station, where he was the absolute commander. I remember the afternoons when he'd come home, take off his uniform, hang his gun on the rack, and his voice would echo, "I had a bad day today." That was the signal for the impending rage. He didn't need a big reason, just a sideways glance, a word out of place was enough to set him off. My mother, Madeline, was the gentlest woman I'd ever known. She had long brown hair always tied neatly at the nape of her neck, and a smile as warm as Wyoming spring sunshine. She worked as a teacher at the local elementary school, teaching kids to read and draw. She was the only light in that dark wooden house. But Mom passed away early when I was just 8. Leukemia, the doctor said. She left quickly, leaving Dad and me in a vast emptiness. I remember the night she died. I sat by her hospital bed, holding her hand, tears streaming down. She whispered, "My boy, be strong. Mom loves you." Dad stood in the corner of the room, not crying, just clenching his fists tightly. After Mom's death, Dad grew increasingly cold, domineering, and violent. It was as if he lost his last shred of humanity, turning into a machine full of anger. The beatings started from there. The first time I broke a glass while washing dishes. The shattering sound rang out, and Dad stormed into the kitchen like a hurricane. "You think money falls from the sky?" he snarled, then grabbed my collar and dragged me into the living room. His leather belt, the old police belt, was pulled out, and the first lashes whipped down on my back. The pain burned like fire. I cried and begged, but he didn't stop. "This is so you'll remember," he said, his voice ice cold. I lay face down on the floor, blood seeping through my pants, and no one helped. The neighbors knew, but in Wyoming, people tend to stay silent about others' family matters. No relatives, no friends, just me and him in that isolated wooden house. My childhood was filled with Dad's beatings, the lack of Mom's love, and no help from anyone. Every school day I wore long sleeves to hide the bruises, forced to smile with friends, but inside was constant fear. Another time I forgot to lock the chicken coop and a few escaped. Dad came home, saw it, and dragged me to the backyard under lightly falling snow. "You think I work my ass off to feed a freeloader like you?" He beat me with a wooden stick, each strike knocking me down. I lay on the cold snow, tears mixing with the flakes, looking up at the gray sky. "Dad, I'm sorry," I sobbed, but he just turned away. "Get up, don't embarrass me." In the nights that followed, I curled up in my room, hearing him drink alone in the living room, and prayed there would be no footsteps approaching. It wasn't just the whippings, but the words like knife cuts. He called me useless brat, weak like your mother. He forced me to learn to shoot guns from a young age, made me run miles in the rain to make a man out of me. I hated him, but feared him too much to resist. School was my only refuge, where I could forget for a while. Teachers praised my good grades. Friends invited me to play ball, but I always refused, afraid of coming home late and getting beaten. At 12, I tried telling a teacher about the beatings, but he just shook his head. Your family's complicated. I can't get involved. No one helped. I learned to endure alone, building a hard shell on the outside. Many years passed, and those memories became a festering scar. Painful, but no longer bleeding. I left home at 18 after a big argument. He wanted me to be a cop like him, but I chose to study veterinary medicine, wanting to heal instead of hurt. "You're betraying me," he yelled as I packed my things. I left without looking back, cutting off all contact. I built a new life in Jackson. The small clinic, peaceful coffee mornings. I no longer thought about Harvey, never imagined facing the past again. When I met Grace, I told her briefly about him, and she hugged me. "You've overcome it, don't think about it anymore." We got married without inviting him, and I thought the scar had healed. But now, as I drove aimlessly on the red dirt roads, the memories rose like a nightmare coming back to life. My wife was secretly meeting that violent man for unknown purposes, causing wounds I thought healed to suddenly bleed again. Grace and Harvey. The thought made me want to vomit. She entered the wooden house, stayed for an hour, came out with disheveled hair. What were they doing? Talking? Or worse? But why was Grace hiding it? And Harvey, what did he want from my wife? A heavy premonition. He was using Grace to get revenge on me, to destroy the life I'd built. He hated me for leaving home, for not following his path, for having happiness he didn't. I kept driving, passing familiar roads from childhood, the river where I once hid from Dad, the forest where I cried alone. Each sight evoked memories, tightening my heart. I knew what I was facing wasn't just betrayal, but danger from a man who had once ruined my life. Harvey hadn't changed. He was still domineering, and now he was targeting Grace to get back at me. I needed to act, but first to stay calm. Back home, I pretended everything was normal with Grace, but inside the storm raged. After witnessing my wife step out of that wooden house with my biological father, Harvey, I was in such pain and shock that I wanted to collapse. But I stayed calm, like the hard shell my childhood had taught me. No crying, no screaming, just silent planning. I couldn't judge hastily based on emotions. I needed solid evidence. And so, I decided to hire a private investigator. I drove into Jackson Town, the cold morning wind blowing through the open window, carrying the scent of forest pines and damp earth. The town was small, everyone knew each other, so I had to be careful. I remembered a small detective office on the main street run by an old man named Jack Thompson, a retired cop known for his discretion. I parked far away and walked into the simple office, with the smell of stale coffee and piled up papers. Jack sat behind a wooden desk, his glasses low on his nose, looking at me with sharp eyes. "Liam Peterson? The vet, right? What's up?" I sat down, my voice low. "I need you to follow my wife and a man. I need a detailed report on their relationship." He nodded, not asking much. It's the job. We agreed on the price. I gave the address of the wooden house, described Harvey and Grace. "1 week," he said. "I'll send the report via secure email." I left the office feeling a bit lighter, but the anxiety still surged. Now it was just waiting. Then a week passed, like an extended nightmare. On Saturday morning, the email from Jack arrived. Report attached. Call if needed. I sat in the clinic, door locked, opening the PDF file on my computer. My heart pounded, my hand trembling as I clicked the mouse. The report was detailed with photos, messages, and surveillance notes. I read line by line, my whole body turning ice cold as if doused in freezing water. Harvey and Grace were having an affair, not just meeting, but lovers. Photos showed them embracing in front of the wooden house, Grace smiling happily in his arms. Messages. "I miss you. See you this afternoon." From an unknown number, but the investigator confirmed it was Harvey. The cruel truth was revealed. Grace had no idea her lover was her father-in-law. Harvey deliberately hid his identity. He used a fake name, told stories of being a widower from afar without mentioning me or the past. I read on, my breathing rapid. Harvey had proactively approached Grace, gradually winning her trust and emotions. The investigator tracked. He visited the coffee shop a few months ago, sat at her serving table, chatted friendly. With his experienced demeanor, calm and deep conversation, telling about his wandering life, his losses, he slowly made Grace vulnerable. She, with her lonely childhood, Grace had told me her parents divorced early, was easily drawn to that understanding. They first met at the shop, then dated privately, and finally at the wooden house. Photos showed afternoons they spent there, door closed tight. Grace fell into his arms, thinking it was true love, but Harvey's true purpose was uncovered by the investigator. He did it all out of hatred and jealousy. The report detailed, Harvey resented me for not inviting him to the wedding, believing his son deliberately cut ties. He stalked me from afar, learned about Grace through small-town rumors. He couldn't accept my stable career, the successful clinic loved and trusted by many. A happy life with a beautiful wife, a cozy home, things he never had. He lost his police job due to an abuse of power scandal, living alone in the wooden house, addicted to alcohol. With deep-seated envy from the past, he planned to destroy my marriage, making me lose my wife and faith in loved ones. The investigator found his old diary. That bastard son will pay. I'll take away what he treasures most. I read each line in the report, my body turning ice cold as if my blood froze in my veins. My hands gripped the edge of the table tightly, tears rolling down unnoticed. I felt not only betrayed by my wife, Grace, whom I loved passionately, now my father's lover, but also torn apart by my own flesh and blood. Harvey, my father, wasn't a father, he was an enemy, using Grace as a weapon. The thought made me shudder. She entered the wooden house, stayed an hour, came out with disheveled hair. What were they doing? Talking? Or worse? But why was Grace hiding it? And Harvey, what did he want from my wife? A heavy premonition. He was using Grace to get revenge on me, to destroy the life I'd built. He hated me for leaving home, for not following his path, for having happiness he didn't. I kept driving, passing familiar roads from childhood. The river where I once hid from Dad, the forest where I cried alone. Each sight evoked memories, tightening my heart. I knew what I was facing wasn't just betrayal, but danger from a man who had once ruined my life. Harvey hadn't changed. He was still domineering, and now he was targeting Grace to get back at me. I needed to act, but first, to stay calm. Back home, I pretended everything was normal with Grace, but inside the storm raged. After witnessing my wife step out of that wooden house with my biological father, Harvey, I was in such pain and shock that I wanted to collapse. But I stayed calm, like the hard shell my childhood had taught me. No crying, no screaming, just silent planning. I couldn't judge hastily based on emotions. I needed solid evidence. And so I decided to hire a private investigator. I drove into Jackson Town, the cold morning wind blowing through the open window, carrying the scent of forest pines and damp earth. The town was small, everyone knew each other, so I had to be careful. I remembered a small detective office on the main street run by an old man named Jack Thompson, a retired cop known for his discretion. I parked far away and walked into the simple office with the smell of stale coffee and piled up papers. Jack sat behind a wooden desk, his glasses low on his nose, looking at me with sharp eyes. Liam Peterson? The vet, right? What's up? I sat down, my voice low. I need you to follow my wife and a man. I need a detailed report on their relationship. He nodded, not asking much. It's the job. We agreed on the price. I gave the address of the wooden house, described Harvey and Grace. 1 week, he said. I'll send the report via secure email. I left the office, feeling a bit lighter, but the anxiety still surged. Now, it was just waiting. Then a week passed, like an extended nightmare. On Saturday morning, the email from Jack arrived. Report attached. Call if needed. I sat in the clinic, door locked, opening the PDF file on my computer. My heart pounded, my hand trembling as I clicked the mouse. The report was detailed with photos, messages, and surveillance notes. I read line by line, my whole body turning ice cold, as if doused in freezing water. Harvey and Grace were having an affair, not just meeting, but lovers. Photos showed them embracing in front of the wooden house, Grace smiling happily in his arms. Messages: I miss you. See you this afternoon. From an unknown number, but the investigator confirmed it was Harvey. The cruel truth was revealed. Grace had no idea her lover was her father-in-law. Harvey deliberately hid his identity. He used a fake name, told stories of being a widower from afar without mentioning me or the past. I read on, my breathing rapid. Harvey had proactively approached Grace, gradually winning her trust and emotions. The investigator tracked. He visited the coffee shop a few months ago, sat at her serving table, chatted friendly. With his experienced demeanor, calm and deep conversation, telling about his wandering life, his losses, he slowly made Grace vulnerable. She, with her lonely childhood, Grace had told me her parents divorced early, was easily drawn to that understanding. They first met at the shop, then dated privately, and finally at the wooden house. Photos showed afternoons they spent there, door closed tight. Grace fell into his arms, thinking it was true love. But Harvey's true purpose was uncovered by the investigator. He did it all out of hatred and jealousy. The report detailed, Harvey resented me for not inviting him to the wedding, believing his son deliberately cut ties. He stalked me from afar, learned about Grace through small-town rumors. He couldn't accept my stable career, the successful clinic, loved and trusted by many. A happy life with a beautiful wife, a cozy home, things he never had. He lost his police job due to an abuse of power scandal, living alone in the wooden house, addicted to alcohol. With deep-seated envy from the past, he planned to destroy my marriage, making me lose my wife and faith in loved ones. The investigator found his old diary. That bastard's son will pay. I'll take away what he treasures most. I read each line in the report, my body turning ice cold as if my blood froze in my veins. My hands gripped the edge of the table tightly, tears rolling down unnoticed. I felt not only betrayed by my wife, Grace, whom I loved passionately, now my father's lover, but also torn apart by my own flesh and blood. Harvey, my father, wasn't a father. He was an enemy, using Grace as a weapon. The thought made me shudder. She entered the wooden house, stayed an hour, came out with disheveled hair. What were they doing? Talking? Or worse? But why was Grace hiding it? And Harvey, what did he want from my wife? A heavy premonition. He was using Grace to get revenge on me, to destroy the life I'd built. He hated me for leaving home, for not following his path, for having happiness he didn't. I kept driving, passing familiar roads from childhood, the river where I once hid from Dad, the forest where I cried alone. Each sight evoked memories, tightening my heart. I knew what I was facing wasn't just betrayal, but danger from a man who had once ruined my life. Harvey hadn't changed. He was still domineering, and now he was targeting Grace to get back at me. I needed to act, but first to stay calm. Back home, I pretended everything was normal with Grace, but inside the storm raged. I shut down the computer, stood up, and walked out of the clinic, my feet heavy as lead. The afternoon Wyoming sunlight streamed through the window, gilding the shelves of medicine and vaccine vials, but to me, everything was gray. I drove home, but not straight away. The familiar road with towering pines now seemed alien-like, leading to somewhere not home. Grace wasn't back yet. The wooden house was silent, only the patter of falling autumn leaves on the roof. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cold cup of coffee, and let the tears fall freely. The pain wasn't just betrayal, it was the collapse of the entire world I'd built. Grace, the woman I trusted absolutely, was now in the arms of the man who had destroyed my childhood. Harvey, he didn't just beat me back then, now he was stealing my current happiness. I wondered, how could I forgive, or even go on living? That entire afternoon I lay on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, memories and the report mixing together. Photos of them embracing, loving messages, all like a family drama movie. I wanted to scream, to smash things, but no. I was Liam Peterson, the calm, reserved veterinarian. I had survived childhood hell by staying composed, and now I'd use that to strike back. After receiving full evidence from the investigator, I had no more doubts. But instead of making a scene, confronting directly or calling the police, I decided to deliver a high-class, clean counterstrike. No shouting, no violence. I'd let the truth expose itself and let it burn them from within. The idea came that night as I lay awake hearing Grace's steady breathing beside me. I'd expose it in front of the people Grace and my father feared losing face with most. Grace always valued friends, family. She feared judgment, feared losing her image as a cheerful, reliable girl. And Harvey, he was once a respected cop, now living alone but still maintaining his past hero facade with old colleagues. I'd use those very people to unmask them. The next morning, I began planning. First, I contacted Investigator Jack again. Follow them closely, report when they meet next. He agreed professionally. Will do. Then I secretly contacted a few of Grace's close friends. First was Sarah, her college friend, now living in a nearby town, always like sisters. I called, my voice cheerful. Sarah, it's Liam. I want to surprise Grace. A small picnic near the forest, inviting a few close friends. She'd love it. Sarah was excited. Oh, great. When? I made up. This weekend, but keep it secret. Next were Mike and Lisa, the couple friends from the wedding, people Grace confided in. They agreed immediately, thinking it was a romantic surprise. And Harvey's old colleagues? I dug deep into memories. He used to work with Bob Harlan, now retired, and Jenny Ortiz, a young female cop who once admired him. I found numbers through the old directory. Small town, everyone knows each other. I called Bob. Hello, Mr. Bob. Liam Peterson here, Harvey's son. I want to invite you to a surprise gathering to honor people like my dad. Bob laughed. Sounds good, kid. I'll be there. Jenny, too, thinking it was an intimate party. I also called Grace's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson from the outskirts, who loved their daughter and respected me. I told them I wanted to organize a surprise picnic for Grace, inviting them to join. They were delighted. Such a great son-in-law. They knew nothing, and that was key. The guests thought it was a fun surprise and all agreed to join, meeting at a roadside cafe on Saturday afternoon. In my heart, the excitement surged like adrenaline before a hunt. I imagined the scene. What would they see, and how would they react? I lost sleep, but not from pain, from waiting for the moment of retaliation. Throughout the week, I kept up appearances with Grace. We had dinners together, watched movies, cuddled, but each touch now felt artificial, like acting. Saturday morning, the Wyoming sky was chilly, gray clouds covering the Rocky Mountains. I woke early, prepared, rented a large van to transport everyone. Brought a fake picnic basket with bread and water. Grace went to work as usual, kissed me goodbye. I'll be home a bit late tonight, shop's busy. I knew the reason, a date with Harvey. I drove to the roadside cafe, met everyone. Sarah hugged me. Liam, you're so romantic. Grace's parents smiled. Wonderful son-in-law. Bob and Jenny shared old stories about Harvey. He was a great boss. We got in the van. I drove, my heart pounding like it would explode. We're taking the forest road to surprise Grace at a special spot, I said, my voice cheerful. I arranged for everyone to pass by the trail nearby, pretending to get lost and detour to the house. I drove slowly, got lost on the red dirt road, dust flying thick. Oops, seems I took the wrong turn, I said, then pointed to the wooden house. There's a house. Let's ask for directions. Everyone agreed, thinking it was part of the fun. We parked far away, walked over. The investigator texted, "They're inside, door ajar." My heart thumped, cold sweat running down my back. We approached, but I stopped at a safe distance, hiding behind dense bushes, letting everyone go ahead without knowing my true intent. I just stood from afar, calmly observing, my hands clenched tightly in my pockets, heart beating like a drum as they neared the house. Grace's dad, Mr. Thompson, leading the group because of his friendly nature, lightly knocked on the ajar door and called, "Excuse me, we're lost. Is anyone home?" The door swung wider under his gentle push, and inside the scene revealed itself clearly under the weak afternoon sunlight filtering through the pines. Grace and Harvey appeared in a flustered state, disheveled, clearly having just been intimate. Grace's shirt buttons misaligned, hair messed up as if from a hasty encounter. Harvey's pants not fully zipped, face flushed red. Everyone stood frozen at the threshold, the atmosphere solidifying like ice. No one said anything, but the shocked, embarrassed, and disappointed looks from her parents, close friends, old colleagues, said it all. Grace's dad widened his eyes, mouth agape, his face paling as if slapped. Her mom covered her mouth with her hand, tears rolling down, her body trembling as if about to fall. Sarah whispered, her voice breaking, "Grace. Oh God, what is this? Why are you here? Who is this man?" Bob shook his head vigorously, his voice hoarse. "Harvey, what the hell are you doing?" Jenny turned away, her shoulders shaking, disappointment clear on the face that once admired my father. From my position behind the bushes, I saw it all. Grace standing petrified, her face white as paper, hands trembling to cover her chest, eyes wide in horror as she recognized her parents and friends. She stammered, her voice weak. "Dad, Mom, why are you all here? It's not what you think." Harvey paled, standing unsteadily, his voice stammering like a drunk. It's a misunderstanding, and everyone leave." No place to hide, no words to defend. They were caught red-handed in broad daylight in front of their closest people. After the moment of utter humiliation in the wooden house, all eyes turned to Grace and Harvey like spotlights shining on two hunted animals. The atmosphere thickened to the point where I could hear my own heart pounding from afar. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, then stepped out from the dense bushes where I had hidden myself. My feet felt heavy, like walking through mud, but I didn't tremble. I faced them in front of everyone, the cold Wyoming wind blowing through my hair, carrying the scent of red earth and rotting leaves. Everyone turned to look at me, their eyes full of astonishment. Grace's parents whispered, "Liam, you're here. What's going on? Explain this clearly." Sarah gaped. You knew all along?" I nodded, my voice steady but cold like frozen lake water. "Yes, I knew everything. And now everyone else will too." I didn't scream, didn't charge in angrily like a wounded beast. No, I had learned from my childhood full of Harvey's whippings that anger only made things worse. Instead, I pulled out the intimate photos of Grace and Harvey from my coat pocket, the evidence the investigator Jack had provided printed clearly on glossy paper. I handed them first to my in-laws, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, who took them with trembling hands, their eyes widening in horror as they looked at the images. Grace and Harvey embracing by the wooden house window, stolen kisses under the pines, secret meetings on the outskirts of Jackson. Then the messages, printed chat logs with passionate words. "I miss you so much. See you this afternoon, love." I passed them next to the group of acquaintances, Sarah, Mike, Lisa, Bob, Jenny. They handed them around, whispers of shock rising. "Oh God, how could this be? Harvey, what is he?" And then, I said clearly, my voice unwavering, "And the most painful truth, this man, Harvey Peterson, is my biological father. He hid his identity to approach Grace, to destroy my life." Grace froze, as if torn from the false shell she had carefully built. She stood there, hand over her mouth, eyes wide with horror, her whole body shaking like an autumn leaf in the wind. "Father? In-law?" she whispered, her voice breaking as if she couldn't believe her ears. She had no idea her lover was her father-in-law, and that truth nearly made her collapse. Her face paled, tears streaming uncontrollably, her body swaying as if about to fall. She looked at me, then at Harvey, then at everyone around, her parents, friends, people who once loved her now looking at her with eyes full of disappointment and disgust. "Liam, I didn't know. He said he was." Her words were fragmented, but no one listened anymore. Sarah turned away, unable to look at her best friend. Mrs. Thompson sobbed, clinging tightly to her husband. My daughter, how could you? Grace knelt on the floor, crying like a child, the cheerful, radiant shell I once loved now completely shattered. Harvey was speechless because this blow was too precise. He was utterly humiliated in front of his old colleagues, his son, the society he once prided himself on being part of. He stood there, hand gripping the rotting wooden table, his face flushing red, then turning ashen, eyes avoiding every gaze. Bob, his former comrade, shook his head. Harvey, you're a bastard. I once thought you were a hero, now what? Jenny, her voice trembling. You've disappointed me so much. I used to admire you. Harvey's face turned beet red, about to lunge at me in a fight, but Bob quickly held him back. My father tried to stammer, claiming innocence, but his words choked. Because the eyes of everyone, contemptuous, disgusted, whipped him like lashes, more painful than any beating he ever gave me back then. He staggered into the room, slumping onto the sofa, hands covering his face, his whole body shaking. He, the domineering father who once controlled everything, was now just a frail old man, broken under the light of truth. I stood there looking at them, my heart full of chaos, pain mixed with satisfaction. I declared clearly, my voice calm but resolute, echoing in the silent wooden house. I'm divorcing Grace and cutting ties with my father. There's nothing left to salvage. It ends here. Those words were like a final knife strike, severing any remaining threads. Everyone nodded, their eyes full of pity for me, but also full of contempt for Grace and Harvey. Grace, humiliated and ashamed to the point of unbearability, stood up, her hands trembling as she grabbed her keys from her bag, covered her face, and ran out of the house. She rushed toward her white sedan, stumbling on the red dirt road, but not stopping, started the engine and sped away, leaving a cloud of dust behind. The sound of the car faded, blending into the Wyoming wind like a final farewell. Harvey was left alone to face the music under the contemptuous and disdainful eyes of everyone. He sat there, not daring to lift his head, while Bob and Jenny turned away. I'm out of here, Harvey. Never see you again. Grace's parents looked at him with eyes full of rage. You've destroyed my daughter, destroyed this family. They left, leaving him alone in the dark wooden house, the door slamming shut like a sentence. I was the last to leave, looking at him one final time. An old, broken man, no longer the ghost of my childhood, just a pitiful figure. I turned my back, stepping out into the weak afternoon sunlight of Jackson, the cold wind blowing through, carrying the scent of red earth and rotting leaves. Everyone waited for me by the van. Sarah hugged me. Liam, you're so brave. I nodded, drove everyone back, my heart heavy but also relieved. The truth had been exposed, and now I could start over. On the way back, the atmosphere in the van was heavy silence, only sighs and Mrs. Thompson's soft sobs. Mr. Thompson patted my shoulder. Son, you did the right thing. We never expected. I briefly recounted the investigator's report, Harvey's plan, Grace's deception. Everyone was even more shocked. Sarah whispered, Grace, I thought she was my best friend. How could she? Jenny shook her head. Harvey was my boss. Now I feel disgusted. Back home, I saw everyone off, promising to stay in touch later. I sat alone at the kitchen table, looking at the unfinished glass of wine, my heart full of storm. Exposing the truth, though clever, still hurt me. Grace crying and running away, Harvey shattered. But I knew this was the only way to end it. That night I couldn't sleep, memories swirling. Grace's eyes when she learned Harvey was my father, the shattering sound of a wine glass. The anxiety faded, replaced by a strange peace. I was free. The next day, the aftermath still haunted. Grace called repeatedly, sobbing, Liam, I didn't know. Please forgive me this time. But I stayed silent, only thinking about the future. Her parents came, comforting me. You're a good son-in-law. Grace was wrong. Harvey didn't call, probably drowning in shame. The town buzzed, rumors spread, but I kept quiet. I returned to the clinic, treating animals, my hands still trembling. Each healing case, I felt myself healing too. Wyoming's winds blew strong, sweeping away the remnants, and I, Liam Peterson, began to breathe easier. The consequences came to Harvey swiftly and harshly, like karma he had brought upon himself. His reputation collapsed in just a few days. In the small town of Jackson, rumors spread like wildfire. His old colleagues in the police force, those who once respected him as a former hero, they turned their backs completely. Bob Harlan, his longtime comrade, called him that very evening. "Harvey, you're a bastard. I'm ashamed to have ever worked with you. Don't ever contact me again." Jenny Ortiz, the young female officer who once admired him for his brave patrol stories, posted a vague status on the local social media. "Sometimes the people we respect the most turn out to be the most vile. Learned an expensive lesson." The chat group of Jackson's former cops removed him from the list, not inviting him to annual gatherings. Neighbors around the rotting wooden house, those who used to greet him politely when walking their dogs, now avoided him like the plague. The old lady next door who used to bring over bread now kept her door tightly shut whenever she saw him in the yard. The town whispered, "Harvey Peterson, the man who destroyed his own son's family. Truly shameful." He lived in isolation in that decaying wooden house, gradually sinking into alcohol as a way to escape. I heard from investigator Jack, who still kept tabs out of curiosity. Harvey bought liquor from the roadside convenience store. Cheap whiskey bottles, drinking alone by the cold fireplace. He rarely left the house, only sneaking out for groceries at night, avoiding familiar faces. The house, already weathered, grew even more dilapidated. Thicker moss, leaky roof from rain, and the howling wind at night like a curse. Harvey self-destructed in torment and guilt for ruining his son's life. He called me a few times, his voice trembling in voicemails. "Liam, son, I was wrong. I was jealous of you." But I didn't respond. The investigator said he often sat alone looking at old photos, pictures of my mom, of me as a child, and cried. That guilt corroded him from within, making him ill, his hair turning completely white in just a few months. He had high blood pressure, a minor heart attack, was hospitalized once, but no one visited. The consequences for Grace were equally devastating, like a storm sweeping away everything she once had. After the incident was exposed, Grace and I proceeded with the divorce. We met at the lawyer's office. She bowed her head, eyes red and swollen. "Liam, I didn't know." He said he was. I signed the papers, not looking at her. "It's too late, Grace." A few days later, she lost her job at the coffee shop. Friends and colleagues all turned away. No one wanted to associate with her anymore. Sarah, her closest friend, texted, "Grace, I can't forgive you. You betrayed Liam, betrayed everyone." Mike and Lisa unfriended her on social media, not answering calls. Colleagues at the shop whispered behind her back, "She slept with her father-in-law? Disgusting." Grace, ashamed, didn't dare go out, stayed with her biological parents for a few weeks, crying all night. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, her parents, loved their daughter, but were also disappointed. "You've shamed us so much, Grace." In the end, she left Jackson Town, moving to another state, perhaps Colorado or Montana, where they had relatives, to start over. Carrying regret and deep emotional trauma, living quietly, avoiding the past. I heard from the investigator. Grace worked as a waitress in a small remote diner, made no new friends, often cried alone. She sent me an apology letter once. "Liam, I was wrong. I'll live to make amends," but I didn't reply. The wound was too deep. In the months right after the incident, I was like a soulless person. Wyoming entered winter, snow falling white and blanketing everything under a layer of freezing ice. I still opened the clinic, treating dogs and cats, stitching wounds on horses, but my hands trembled, my mind adrift. Every morning I brewed coffee alone, sat on the porch watching the snow fall, remembering Grace, her hair scent, her warm smile. I remembered Harvey not with hatred but sorrow for a lost father. That pain made me lose sleep, lose appetite, lose a few pounds. Mrs. Martha visited, bringing hot bread. "You're strong, Liam. Time will heal." I forced a smile, but my heart was full of shadows. I cleaned the house, threw away Grace's things, the white wedding dress, our photos, all into the fireplace fire, watching them burn to ashes. In the evenings, I sat alone by the fireplace, drinking, letting tears fall freely. But gradually, a new life began to dawn, like spring sun piercing through snow. I spent my free time volunteering in wildlife education activities, guiding children on how to care for and love animals. I started with a local program at Jackson's elementary school, volunteering to take groups of kids into the forest, teaching them about birds, deer, and how to protect the environment. Every weekend, I drove to pick up the small group of children, bringing along Max, the hunting dog I adopted after the incident, to demonstrate. See, kids, animals have feelings like us. Love them, I said, watching the children laugh as they petted Max's fur. During those outings, seeing the kids smile brightly beside the little dog or gently holding an injured bird, I felt my heart healing. Once a boy named Timmy, eyes sparkling, hugged a sparrow with a broken wing. "Uncle Liam, can I save it?" I knelt down, teaching him to bandage. "Yes, son. With love, anything is possible." In that moment, my heart warmed, the past wounds seeming to fade. I understood that sometimes people don't need to leave to find peace again. Just choose to live better each day and the heart will heal its old scars on its own. I expanded the clinic, hiring an assistant, a young girl named Anna, enthusiastic and cheerful. We treated animals together, and through that, I learned to trust again. Occasionally, memories returned. An afternoon with strong winds, I remembered Grace crying, Harvey alone. But I didn't hate. They faced consequences, and I chose to forgive myself. I drove through the outskirts, past the abandoned wooden house, moss-covered, and smiled sadly. Life went on, and I, Liam Peterson, rose from the ashes, living more fully than ever.